Welcome to Lightning Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and start with this question. Sampling will be a big part of our business model, and all the bottle shops I've spoken to say they just operate in the gray area without any sort of food handling license. I lean towards the gray area as well, but my husband has a background working at restaurants and is very weary of getting on the wrong side of the health department. That said, the whole process that would be required to just give out free samples above board is preventatively expensive and complex. The juice just isn't worth the squeeze. Should we just tolerate the risk and go for it? This is such a wonderful question because I understand where everyone is coming from. And by everyone, I mean both the business owner and the health department. I'm going to start by talking about the health department, and then I will move into the business owner side. When it comes to the health department, many rules inside of the health code are there for a good reason. I mean, it's about sanitation, about not getting people sick, spreading disease. A little tiny little bit of sticky liquid can cause a lot of harm. And we're not even just talking about, what we're transferring from person to person, but we're also talking about, the cleanliness factor of the environment, how it can bring in pests. There's so many reasons for this. So I want to mention that off the bat. So let's start talking about differences between an actual bar and a bottle shop. So when you are just selling drinks, like ready to drink cans or spirits or what have you, where you are just selling the canned good that you are not opening, prepping, or anything for the person, you don't need much. You just need to make sure that it's not on the floor, and that it's the right temperature, that your stock is properly rotated so that you're not selling expired product, and that your bills are paid. Like, it's pretty straightforward when it comes to what the health department is kind of looking for, and looking for those COAs of the products that you're selling. Now, when it comes to the moment that you open that lid for somebody, now we're moving into a territory where, okay, well, your fingers are now touching where people's mouths go. So automatically we want to make sure that your hands have been washed, or you're wearing gloves. If you're wearing gloves, that you put them on at the appropriate time, because that is how disease spreads, plain and simple. Back in the day when I was younger, I would have said to hell with the whole code. Who cares? But nowadays I really am a firm believer, just because of the fact that there are little tiny corners you may think don't make a difference, but let's say some mold ends up forming, because it can happen within a matter of hours. Like, it doesn't take days for these things to happen. Like, it can happen pretty quickly, especially if you're starting to mix anything. Now, if you're just opening up a can for someone, it's pretty easy to keep things pretty solid. But the moment you are using any mixture of things, then you have to use anything to stir, any tools at all. Now we are entering a zone where you really do need to have your 3-bay sink to make sure everything that is properly done. Now, that being said, let's say the build out is just impossible, because that is what the expense is. You can look into temporary permits, basically doing an event style setup where you have temporary buckets acting as your 3-bay sink. This is similar to the style of what you would do if you were doing a pop-up event at a farmer's market, for example. Like, you don't need a whole food truck with all of these fancy things. Like, you can have a tent with a table and literally 3 buckets where you wash things, and you can do that, and then you can literally get a permit from the city. And in some cases you don't even need a permit. It really depends on where you specifically are, so I would look into that specific health code. But I want to mention that that's not impossible. Now, again, when it comes to things that seem preventatively expensive, it may feel that way right now. But I want you to think about, first off, what would happen if the health department did come in and tell you to shut down? That's preventative of your entire business. As my own business coach always tells me, if I say that I don't have a budget for that, she says, well, Marina, it's simply because you haven't made one yet. And it's true. So there is a mindset hack that probably needs to occur here where if this is something you're serious about, this is something that's like in your business plan where you're like sampling is like really important to me, then maybe those sinks are a little bit more important to you than you think. And we need to kind of take a look at that cost. Again, there are ways to set up portable situations if you don't have the ability to architecturally get that accomplished right now. But I want to mention that anybody who is in the gray zone gives me the heebie-jeebies. I do not feel comfortable going into bottle shops that I know don't follow health code because I have literally gotten sick. I've gotten food poisoning from places, like from samples before. Like it has literally happened to me. I even had someone give me samples out of the back of her car in a parking lot one time. It got me so sick. And it was not the positive experience that this industry needed. Let's just put it that way. So now I'm going to kind of finish answering this question from the other side where it's like, okay, business owners, I can understand from the perspective of, you know, look, I'm just pouring from a can into a little tiny little sample cup. How difficult could that be? What if I am washing my hands and doing all the things? Again, it's like you can set up temporary situations. And I want to mention that like the sampling is an incredibly important part of the business, but there are other ways to be able to provide samples as well. So that being said, I want to tell you a little story. So let's pretend nothing ever happens to you specifically because you do a really excellent job of maintaining cleanliness, even if you're just using a temporary bucket situation, right? All it takes is one person who comes into your business, who's a little bit of a wackadoodle in some way, shape, or form, who maybe was upset because they didn't receive the great customer service, or I don't know, something just really irritated their day, and you and your business somehow was just, you know, you were caught in the crossfire of an unfortunate person's day. It's very possible that you could end up in a situation where someone, you know, like I said, having a bad day, they leave a bad review and they're like, hey, you know what? I just want to bring this person down. Because unfortunately, there are just some rude, terrible people out there that do that kind of stuff. And then they call the Better Business Bureau, the health department, any government licensing department that they can think of to try to bring you down, and then your business gets put through the ringer. Or even if it's not just some person in a bad mood, it could be just someone with a lawsuit happy trigger finger who enjoys finding money in people's pain, like in pain points of businesses. I've seen this happen. And it's so devastating when it happens. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, that thing and that person who did that was terrible, but also you didn't do things by the book. So you don't really have a leg to stand on either. Even though you were the lesser of the two evils, technically they're not wrong. If they were to call you on something, then the health department comes in. So you don't want to leave your business liable. To me, that's the same thing as coming up with a super dope name and then not trademarking your business. And then I figure out you didn't trademark your business, so I go and put in a trademark for $250, and then you have to buy it from me for like $1 million, right? To me, that's just, it's the same level of you, by not doing this thing, you are setting yourself up to be vulnerable, and that's not a long-term sustainable approach. Now, if we're talking, hey, I don't have the ability or funds or know how to do this in the first year, but maybe in year 2, I can actually update things. Cool. Well, then your business plan can be set up a temporary situation for the first year, and then year 2, you take a look at your profits margins and you see, hey, did we make enough money to be able to actually do a little build out here so we can be serious about this? Because if you're serious about this, you would build a real bar because you respect the product, you respect what you're doing. And not to mention, it's really worth it because if you make it beautiful, it's an incredible content development area, which makes you known all across the internet, which means people can be ordering from you in different ways, even if they're not local. That's going to open up a bunch of revenue streams. So long story short, the more you invest in yourself and your business, and you don't think that it's as unattainable as it really truly is, you're going to be in a better situation. So if you want any more guidance on this, and specifically how to do that, how to set up this plan, how to budget for it, how to make it work, please reach out to me. You can send me an email. I'm going to, of course, include more information and more resources below this video. But I want to mention just, again, sometimes our minds think things are impossible. Like, oh, I have to do this gray zone because I don't know how to do it the right way. I'm here for you, and I want you to know that there's always a way to do it the right way. And I was not goody two-shoe back in the day. Back when I was in high school, I was always the one skipping class. I was always the one not showing up. I was always the one out back smoking some fun things. But I've come to this point in my life because I've realized that when you are always doing things, trying to cut a corner or trying to find a way around the system, it's so much better to beat the system at its game and then affect change from the inside. You are brilliant enough to figure this out because you were brilliant enough to have the idea in the first place. So even if it feels muddy in between getting from point A to B, just know you've got it in you. And if you need any help getting there, I've got your back. So you've got this. Thank you so much for asking this amazing question. Here's some confetti. We need some confetti. Come on. Why is the confetti not confettiing? There we go. Beautiful.